Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Sales Success with America's #1 sales trainer, Tom Hopkins. We're delighted to have over 800 dedicated sales professionals registered for today's conference. The topic of today's presentation is the art of selling. Take it away, Tom.
Well, thank you, Judy, and thank you all for joining me. And I think it's so exciting to have this new, in a way, seminar approach to having the ability to have me here in my home in Scottsdale, Arizona, and having you there, but yet having a chance to transmit the message, the ideas, the skills to help you have a better selling career. So thank you all for joining me. And as a quick overview, what I'd like to try to cover in this short message is these concepts of what selling really is, because it's not known by everybody, the true meaning of selling. And then, of course, the benefits of a career in selling, what you get if you're willing to give, and the myth of the natural-born sales wonder, which is something I really love to talk about, and the most important skill of all in sales, and then why you should be proud to be in sales. Now, as we get started, I'm going to cover these slides and give you some insight on each of the messages. And in the very beginning, it says what the profession of selling really is. And I learned after about a year, 8 years I spent full-time in the field of real estate selling, that it truly is the highest paid hard work and the lowest paid easy work you'll ever find. And the basic concept is you'll make a fortune if you're willing to put in fanatical time and effort for a period of time to build the momentum to thus build your business. Whenever I talk to a brand new salesperson, I try to convince them that products are different, but if you spend 24 months to 36 months in almost any sales endeavor with fanatical activity and follow-up and really building your business, all of a sudden the momentum will carry, and you'll be able to spend less time the rest of your career making the same or more money because of that tremendous fanatical effort in the beginning. And then, of course, it's important to realize what the benefits of a career in selling are. And these are the ones that I found after all the years of doing this. First, number one, there is freedom of expression. And I feel generally what that means is you are free to work the number of hours, the number of presentations you wish to make. You have an opportunity to coast if you feel like it for a while. But again, as I mentioned in our first opening, give me that fanatical effort for a 2 or 3 year period. And then you'll be able to make the same income in less time once you build a foundation. And of course, you have the opportunity to use your resourcefulness and perseverance to compete in the world of business, which is mean you're really free to write your own paycheck in this wonderful field. The second benefit that I found is there's really no income ceiling, and no one limits your income but you. If you want to earn more, you learn more. It's that simple. See, almost every job where an employer hires you, they pay you X amount a week, X amount a month, and in a way, they've determined what your income is and what your financial worth is. But in selling, you are going to determine it. And the reason it's so exciting is there's no real guarantees, and because of that, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. And the third thing I found over the years is it's barely, rarely, ever boring. Meaning every day is an adventure. For years I've said this. One thing I love about selling is when you open your eyes and wake up in the morning, you have no idea the heights of exhilaration or the depths of depression you can have in the same 12-hour, 15-hour day. So it's an exciting thing to realize. Number 4, I think, is so important, that the high potential return for a low capital investment, meaning most salespeople don't have to come up with a huge amount of money to, in essence, open up their own business, which is what you do when you go into sales. Oh yes, you probably have a product or a service. You have a company that's built its reputation in the community. You might have an office or a location. Sure, you might have this, and you have leadership and management. But the thing that I find is, based on the opportunity to earn the type of income we can in selling, there's really a very minimal capital investment to offer a really high potential return. I know I've had friends of mine and say, "Guy, it's true. I paid to go to a class. I went and passed my license exam for insurance, and I went into financial services, and I bet I spent $1,000 total to make $200,000 or $300,000 or more a year." So that's a real benefit that you've got to be aware of. And I mentioned in my opening remarks that I'd love to talk about this next subject, which is the myth of the natural-born salesman or salesperson. And let me explain it this way. For years, I have heard from people that say, you know, you're just a natural, or they're a natural-born salesperson. And don't miss this concept now. No woman in a delivery room ever gave birth to a top salesperson. We all are born as babies, we mature, we grow. Then, of course, a lot of our long-term happiness and success is tied in with the environment and our upbringing. And so if you are fortunate to be in an entrepreneurship family with a mom and dad that have believed in being in business for themselves or believed in finding a way to own their own business, that's a tremendous advantage in the beginning. But it's so important that we really grasp the concept that no one's born great in sales. They're trained. They follow mentors, hopefully like myself, which I'm flattered to have you on this call, this message. And hopefully you'll say, I'm going to take Tom's ideas, make them mine. And after doing this for all these years, gosh, it's been a wonderful experience to have so many people, almost every city that I go now with a live seminar, to have people come up and just with such enthusiasm say, Tom, 30 years ago I was new in sales, and I went to your seminar, and now I own this company, and I brought these 100 salespeople that work for me. And that's such an honorable thing to hear. And I thank all of you that have done that over the years. Thank you. And here's an important thing that you've got to realize. Selling is a learned skill, and it can be learned by anyone willing to first study and apply effective communication skills, and realize that there are two types of temperaments and personalities. There's the interested introvert or the interesting extrovert. Now, many people that are extroverts gravitate naturally into selling. They're outgoing, they're talkative, they're witty, they're glib, they're charming. Then there's the introvert who's a little humble, a little shy, and they're a little nervous about selling. Personally, I would rather take an interested introvert and teach them how to be master questioners and listeners than to take an interested extrovert who is, again, so darn interested in being in control of conversation, so talkative, that they really overwhelm people. So really think about that myth that we just covered. Now let's talk about this. First of all, extroverts. Now these are people that are outgoing. Number one, they're perceived as being kind of loud and aggressive. Number two, they're maybe more likely to dress somewhat flamboyantly. Number three, they talk too much. They listen too little. Number four, they want to keep the focus of conversation on themselves. Now, I want you to think about those four concepts, because if that happens to be you, And I hope we can always, during these times together, kind of really be honest with ourselves. If any of those four I just mentioned are you, you really want to say that's an area I'm going to work on. I'm going to maybe work a little more conservatively on my dress to relate to the people I work with. I'm going to not talk as much as ask more questions and listen. And I'm going to be more concerned with the other folks than I am with myself. Think about that now. And then, of course, the introverts. Now, here's four things about an introvert. They tend to be somewhat soft-spoken, which comes from a feeling of humility. They are very conservative in their dress. In fact, one thing I found about most of them is they'll really try to dress somewhat like the clients they serve, based on the situation, where they are, and what that whole selling situation is at that moment. Number three, they're very good listeners. This is something that an introvert works on, letting the other person talk. And don't ever forget this. In any conversation, whoever is talking is only really learning what they already know. So as an introvert, by being a master listener, you're going to find out what you need to know to close more transactions. And of course, number four, they're willing to give up control in conversations. And I've always found that when you're talking, you're not in control. When you're listening after the right questions, you are in control even though they're doing the talking, which is such an exciting concept in this beautiful art form called selling. Now, you have to ask yourself the next question. Is your vocabulary costing you money? And by that I mean, the main emotion we must control is the potential client's fear. Now, fear causes people to reflexively say no. Now, fears can be brought about by the emotions created by the words we use. And there are words that I have kind of had a fun little concept with. I coined the term rejection words or nasty words. And it's important that you really, if you're taking notes or if you're taking the message, that you work on eliminating these 6 words from your vocabulary. Now, the first words you don't want to say, especially in any selling situation, are the words cost or price. Now, the reason for that is when a buyer of any product or service hears the word, well, the price is, or it will cost you this much, their subconscious, and that's conscious now, subconscious, starts thinking maybe we should shop around and try to get it for less. So we always say the total amount, not the cost or the price. Number 2, don't say down payment. Now, many of you do have a person come up with a percentage in the original purchase, but if you call it a down payment, they right away say, now it's time to write the check, and that's when they get nervous. So always call it the initial amount instead of down payment. Number 3, these are 2 selling terms, sell or sold. And a lot of us say it to get some type of rapport. You know, we've sold many of your friends. I think when I sell you this product, you're going to love it. Well, see, all they hear is pressure. You're going to sell me or I'm not going to get sold. So I'd love you to use the terms, get them involved. We've gotten so many families involved in this wonderful program. I'm excited to get you involved. And I think when you do get involved, you'll be thrilled that we started the process. Try those words. Then, of course, number 4, don't use the word sign when you're needing to get their approval on the paperwork. Because many of them were taught early by parents, don't sign anything, a printed form with a salesperson. So drop the word sign. When you're going for their signature, ask them to do one of 4 things. Ask them to give you their okay. If you'll just okay my paperwork. Or I'll need your approval. I used to love that. John Mary, with your approval here, we'll set up possession date for 30 days. Or I'll need you to endorse it as you would a check. Or if you'll just authorize it. Now, one of my highest income earning young salespeople, he's had such fun. He's got this great little phrase. When he's going for the signature, he says, "John, Mary, let me make you famous for a moment and just get your autograph right here." That's funny, it's tongue-in-cheek, but by saying, "let me make you famous," it's kind of like bragging about what you're doing for them to get their autograph. You might try that. Now, number 5, of course, is a word that some of you, especially in in-house sales, you call your transactions a deal. But there are some people who are leery about getting into a deal because they had a bad one in the past. So number 5, instead of deal, let's call it an opportunity or a transaction. Opportunity, transaction. And of course, number 6, I'd like you to eliminate the word problem, because when you say the word problem, it opens up an envelope in their mind of problems they may have not thought of. So instead of the word problem, let's use the word challenge. I'm excited to help you with that challenge. And then, of course, again, here's another very important concept. You'll get everything you want in life when you stop talking and start asking the right questions. Oh, there's such power in that basic, fundamentally sound truth. Okay, Tom, questions. Why do we ask questions? There's 5 main reasons. Number 1, you do gain control if you are the questioner and they're the talker. The second reason is you isolate areas of interest. And by the way, just as a quick side note, if you are asking questions of your future client, your buyer, and you hit a question that you can see their intensity, their increased interest goes up with that question, stay on that question. Ask more questions about that question. Now, number 3 is to get minor agreements. And by the way, I learned over the years, you get enough minor agreements and that major yes decision will be carried. Number 4, to arouse and control emotions. And that'll be a major portion of all my training to you, is the importance of realizing that we are in the emotion business, and the average human being does not say yes to invest money logically. They say yes emotionally, then defend that decision logically. Number 5, to isolate areas of concerns. Now, we're going to learn over the years that without concerns, you'll probably not get a yes. So hearing a concern is a positive when you really know exactly how to turn that no into a yes, which we're going to learn in our program. Now, let's talk about some questions. First of all, to get buyers opening up and talking, we use what we call open questions. Now, look at the definition. Open questions require thought on the part of the buyer. They yield more information and encourage continued discussion. Years ago in school, I remember my teacher calling these questions the WWWWH questions, which stood really for who, what, when, where, why, and how. So these open questions are really important to build into your overall presentation. And then, of course, we also then learn through practice to control conversations with closed questions. Now, closed questions are aimed at obtaining a specific answer, usually a few words, maybe just a yes or a no. Now, most of you, I know if you've been through my training, either on my audios, my CDs, or at a live seminar, I told you the main closed question is that little tie down, which is that little question at the end of a sentence that demands a yes. And then I hope you remember we said we take isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, can't you, won't you, haven't you, hasn't he, hasn't she, and we put them on the end of a sentence with a nice little nod. John, a reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it? Investing in a quality product makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You are interested in having more financial net worth in your golden years, aren't you? So work on this little closed question, the tie down. And then, of course, also realize that these tie downs, they demand a yes, so you can't overuse them. In fact, I've tried to convince my people I teach that you use maybe 2 maximum in a presentation. More than that, and they become pushy. Then, of course, our next wonderful question form is called the alternate of choice. And notice the definition. It's a question with 2 answers. Either answer is a minor agreement leading toward the major decision. And there's 3 main uses of the alternative choice. First, money amounts. Would you like to give us a 5 or a 10% earnest money? Or would you like to start at 150 or a 250 a month suits your financial needs? Or it could be number 2, location. Would you like me to stop by and see you at your home, or would you like to come by our facility and meet our regional vice president? Or it can be startup dates. Shall we set everything up for the 1st or the 15th? The alternative choice is a beautiful little question. They can't say yes or no when you give them 2 times, 2 places, 2 amounts of money. So start working on that one. It'll make you a lot of money, by the way. Then, of course, our next type of question I'd love you to work on is called the involvement question. Now, notice a question the clients must ask themselves after they've gotten involved. They've given you a check. They've said yes. It mentally throws them into the future and assumes ownership. See, in real estate, so many of these things I did, they would walk through the home. I saw that they'd like it. They'd walk out in the backyard. He'd go, oh, I love the yards. Landscaping's beautiful. Well, I'd ask him an involvement question. John, do you enjoy working in the yards, and will you take care of that? Well, when he says yes to doing the landscaping, he in essence said yes to purchase the home. I got him involved in decisions he'll have to make in the future. And then, of course, one of my favorite little strategies is called the Porcupine. I'm always asked why I call it that. It was originally taught to me as just answer the right questions with a question. And when they go say yes to that, we start on filling out our paperwork, our form. So it's answering the right questions with the questions, then with their response, moving on to the form. Be so conscious of the fact that if they ask the right questions, can we get it by the 1st of the month? We don't say yes. Will the 1st of the month best suit your needs? When they say yes, you've closed the transaction. Tom, do you train us how to use the copier? John, is training important to get maximum benefit for the company? When they say yes, they just bought the training and the copier is included. Think about the Porcupine. It's a powerful yet subtle yet wonderful way to close more transactions. Now let me share this with you. How can you really make sales training work for you? Well, first of all, I think through your presentation and whether or not you're using these fear-producing words, I hope you rewrite sentences where you're saying those 6 words and get them out of your presentation. And then, of course, number 2, think about the answers you need from buyers in order to move the sale forwards. And write effective questions that will bring you those answers. And then, as you know, PDR, practice, drill, and rehearse.